Phil Seawalt, welcome to the Power Hour Ventures podcast, where we breed billionaires. I've known you for 20 plus years. I don't even know how many years it's been, but I think I first got to know you through my family and charity work through so many years back. And I've had the opportunity to just sit with you and learn from you throughout the years, and the developments that you've been a part of, not only in the United States, Colorado, San Francisco, Russia. Give me more of where we're at, but give me a little background kind of on, the development space and all these amazing projects that you've been a part of throughout the years, and then we'll kind of dance through that conversation a little bit.
Well, good. Yeah, it sounds great. My background is in architecture engineering. I'm also a licensed contractor and a developer. I've been very successful over the years, rose to the top of my profession through hard work, and I can't say intelligence necessarily, but I use what I have as much as I can. I think we all should strive to use whatever we got, physical, mental abilities, whatever they are. Mm-hmm. I'm a builder. When I was a young kid, my mother used to put me in the backyard, and I would build all these little houses and roads and everything. Mm-hmm. And I was perfectly happy, and she loved it. Mm-hmm. I was not in her hair. I entertained myself. And one of the companies that I currently run is named after that era. And I think everybody kind of fondly remembers a part of their childhood. Mm-hmm. And I'm a builder. When I'm creating things, I'm happy. Mm-hmm. I'm not a destructive type person. I could never be a demolition contractor, for mm-hmm. instance. Mm-hmm. Although we need those in our world, but mm-hmm. I like to make things happen, whether it's a building, an organization, a group of people, a philanthropic endeavor. Mm-hmm. I'm happy building, and I've been able to thankfully work on 4 of the high-rise buildings in downtown Denver. Mm-hmm. A city block in San Francisco, 2 blocks in Phoenix, San Diego, Albuquerque, mm-hmm. Seattle, and I also worked in Russia for 18 years. Mm-hmm. So all of those stories are kind of a story in themselves, mm-hmm. but I would attribute my success to a can-do attitude rather than focusing on the problems and what we can't do. Mm-hmm. Come up with what we can do. Mm-hmm. And really kind of start looking at everything in a positive direction, and coming up with creative ideas. 99% of them are ludicrous and crazy, but it's still an idea, mm-hmm. so put them out there. Mm-hmm. And one of them out of 99 might save the day. Mm-hmm. And that's how I rose to the top of my profession. People recognize that, mm-hmm. and I made a lot of money for a lot of people. Mm-hmm.
Let's go into Russia a little bit. It's such a sensitive topic today, around the world. And, I'm not sure really what the depiction is that everybody thinks, right? But, in 18 years of building over there, what'd you experience? And, is it the same perception that, we as Americans have over here? And a little insight on that.
Well, I want to write 3 books actually on various topics there. Their economic system, which basically doesn't work at all, mm-hmm. and they won't try to change that, because they tried to open up to the West, and the West pretty much shunned them, so they've gone back into their own little enclave. First of all, what's happening in the country now is appalling, mm-hmm. and I think most of the Russian people find it appalling. Mm-hmm. Their conflict is with their cousins, their neighbors, people that actually Russia originated in Ukraine. I'm not sure if you know that or not, but
I did not.
The original Russian enclave originated in Ukraine. The people there are very well educated. They're very friendly. They're very giving. They're so much more like us mm-hmm. than I think most any nationality on the planet. Mm-hmm. They have this political system that they can't shake. They can't get rid of it, and it's not that they don't want to try, but they just are not in a position to make any significant changes in their system. So they put up with the best they can do.
Mm-hmm.
And in many times that's pretty primitive, pretty appalling level of living, certainly compared to our standards.
Mm-hmm.
I'll give you an example of the number one question, well, probably the number 2 or 3 question that I got most of the time. They asked me several times in several cities on separate occasions if our light posts, our street lamps, were gold plated.
Really?
They had this thing going that the United States is so wealthy that they've gold plated all of their stuff.
Really?
Of course, it's laughable for us.
Right, yeah, literally.
But they were really thinking that, that could be true.
Interesting.
It's farther from the truth. It couldn't be farther from the truth. But
right.
Generally, the Russian folks, I think anybody who's been there and worked there would have a favorable opinion of the people themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Their political system is horrendous, and it's barbaric, and it's brutal.
There's always there's a saying out there that only at a point of crisis will things change. I mean, we've seen it in a lot of different aspects throughout history, and I don't know if they're at that point. I mean, it seems to be, but I don't know if this is enough to make a change.
We got to look at their history. Any country, you really have to look at their history, or you should, to understand them. And when I worked there, I had my own business for most of those 18 years, and had my own employees and an office and the whole routine. Most of the people are very well educated. They share the same aspirations that any other human being does on the planet. The top 10 things are their priorities too. They have a brutal, as you've listened to the news reports on how the Russians are doing their task, political system to deal with. So murder, I mean, all of the bad things that you could imagine happen every day for people who speak out. When I was there, I watched, so let's talk about the early 90s just briefly, when Yeltsin was standing on the tank. I watched their system go. I had been to the country in '89, so previously, and I'd seen the Soviet system and how it worked or didn't work is a better description. And then them changing into opening up to the West with the Gorbachev era and the Yeltsin era, and opening up their economy based on a market economy. I watched the newspapers go from total propaganda to pretty much Western style. Anybody could say anything you want. And it was in print, and it was on radio, and I'm going, wow, this society has really, really opened up to the West. And then I watched all of that get shut down. I watched all the journalists disappear. I watched all the newspapers go back to whatever the propaganda edict from the Politburo or the Kremlin in general was. TV stations. So now they've gone back to this totally controlled central economy type of atmosphere that, short of catastrophic failure, like not being able to put food on the streets, which actually happened. The reason, if you know history a bit, in their history, their system is unchangeable. Certainly in my lifetime, and perhaps the near future. Some things could happen, but I see it becoming more and more of a closed society, hurting all of their population in general, making a much more difficult life. Life in Russia is very, very hard.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure we'll be abreast of all that information as it continues to kind of unfold throughout time. Let's shift a little bit back to the United States. And development here in Colorado. I mean, I'm very bullish on the state of Colorado, and I would assume you'd probably feel the same. And when I look at all of our demographics and all the different businesses, industries that have really, I mentioned it earlier in a different conversation about back in the day, Colorado was really, 80s was like only oil and gas. Now you look at our industries. I mean, we cover almost the whole board of industry, and so I really see that as sustainable growth, very bullish on the long-term outlook throughout our whole state, really. I don't think it's just centralized to Denver. I think it's all the surrounding cities, counties, mountains, everywhere, north, south, east, west. I just see so much growth. But do you concur with that, or kind of what do you feel there?
Yeah, and to take off on what happened in the mid-'80s, the governor's office actually put a task force together. Because, we had that, what was it, the silver, what was it, the financial crisis, silver, and whatever else it was in the 80s. And we recognized that we were too focused on one industry, oil and gas. So there was a task force put together, and many people for many years worked to diversify our economy. So we have, I'm going to say, close to 400 major economic segments in our economy. And I think any area needs what I would term an economic engine. There needs to be something that gets the economy rolling. Buying, selling, trading. In the Denver Front Range area, I think it's DIA Airport. DIA Airport has, for the last several years, 69 million travelers go through the airport. That's astounding. And most of those people are there for a reason. True, some are just going through, but most of them do some kind of business here. And that boosts our economy. That is the economic engine for the whole Front Range. We also have a very well-educated workforce here. A lot of companies like to locate here. You'll find all the big names. I don't care what big name that you want to pick. You'll find a local presence here and a lot of employees. So companies like to locate here. As you well know, if you wanted to work for a specific company years ago, you went to where they were located. Nowadays, companies are trying to locate where people want to live. Colorado has all the big pluses. We have a mild climate. We have wonderful outdoor recreation. There are mosquitoes. The bugs aren't like in Louisiana.
Yeah, non-existent comparable.
We don't have extreme high temperatures. We have low humidity. It's a very attractive place to live and work. And in the next, through 2050, I think the Front Range area in general, so from Colorado Springs to Fort Collins, maybe even south of the Springs down into Pueblo a bit, is going to grow phenomenally. Because people want to be here and companies want to locate here. We also have some good things going for us. We're halfway between Tokyo and London. I don't know if anybody's ever looked at a map.
I did not know that, yeah.
But a lot of people find it in the Asian world and in the European world convenient to use Denver for something. We have a wonderfully young, educated workforce. Guys like me are slowly retiring out of the picture. That a lot of companies are seeking. So I think it's all up for Colorado. Even with COVID that slowed us down a bit, the 14 major ski areas that we have, or whatever the number is, the recreational facilities in general, the availability of water. I'm not sure if anybody understands the development equation, but growth is based on what you can provide to the occupants, water being the number one issue in the state of Colorado. The Front Range seems to have an adequate supply of water that we're getting mainly from the western slope because of a group, I'm not sure if anybody remembers them, but in the 30s and 40s there was a group in the Denver area called the Water Buffaloes. And they were a group of, I think, 11 business people who wanted to build reservoirs and water storage facilities in the mountains, and they did over many, many years. And because of their efforts, we've been able to grow along the Denver to Fort Collins, Colorado Springs area because we have had water. State of Colorado, most of the water's on the western slope. if anybody hasn't heard that before.
Right.
And we import it onto the eastern slope so that we can have, right now we have about 5 million people. Colorado Springs to Fort Collins, I think around a little over 6 million in the entire state. So most of the population is and will continue to be along the Front Range area.
Yeah.
So I'm bullish on Colorado too.
Yeah, me too. Well, we're coming to time here, and I greatly appreciate all the knowledge and wealth and depth, the breadth of resources and knowledge and experience and the friendship throughout the years. And I continue to look forward to all the future growth and the partnerships and everything, and just very excited for what the future holds.
Well, more power to Power Hour. You have a great organization. You pull people together, phenomenal people.
Yeah.
And like to see you succeed and do more of what you've been doing.
Well, thank you much.
Take care.
Appreciate the time.
Thank you.
Thanks.